The courtroom buzzed with the low hum of whispered gossip, but Evelyn Hart heard only one voice, the cruel, echoing laugh of her soon-to-be ex-husband, Brandon Hale. He leaned back in his tailored navy suit, smirking as if the entire court existed solely to applaud his triumph. "Your Honor," Brandon announced loudly enough for every spectator to hear, "my wife doesn't even have a lawyer. She can barely afford her rent in Brooklyn. I'm not sure why we're wasting the court's time." End quote. Laughter rippled behind him. Even his attorney grinned, tapping a Mont Blanc pen against a stack of immaculate documents prepared to rip Evelyn's life apart. Evelyn sat alone at the respondent's table, clutching the frayed strap of her thrift store handbag. Her heart pounded so hard it shook her breath loose. She had rehearsed every possible response, every plea, every way to defend herself, but none of it mattered now. Brandon wanted a public humiliation, and he was getting it. Her cheeks burned as his mistress, seated smugly behind him, whispered loudly, "Poor thing, maybe someone can start a fundraiser for her." Heat flooded Evelyn's ears. She swallowed, fighting the tremble in her voice. "Your Honor, But before she could speak, Brandon cut her off with a raised hand, as though silencing a child. "She's wasting everyone's time. Let's finalize this. I have a board meeting in an hour." To Trosses. His arrogance filled the room like smoke thick, suffocating, impossible to escape. The judge lifted her pen. "If the respondent has no representation, we will proceed." But then, the heavy courtroom doors slammed open. Every head whipped around. A tall man in a charcoal suit stepped inside, the Manhattan skyline glowing behind him through the glass hallway. He walked with a calm authority that instantly quieted the room. Evelyn's breath caught because she had no idea who he was. He approached the bench, set down a leather case, and said in a steady voice that sliced through the silence, "Your Honor, I will be representing Miss Evelyn Hart from this moment forward." Brandon's smile froze, mid-victory, and the entire courtroom erupted in stunned whispers. Evelyn Hart sat frozen as the mysterious man in the charcoal suit stood between her and the destruction Brandon had prepared. She didn't dare breathe. For 3 months, she had fought this battle alone. No lawyer, no money, no support system. She had walked into this courtroom like a lamb led to slaughter. But now the entire room stared at her, as if she had unleashed a weapon they never saw coming. The judge lifted a brow. "And you are?" "Cole Ramsey, Your Honor," the man replied smoothly, offering his card. "Attorney of record for Miss Hart. Effective immediately." Gasps scattered through the courtroom. Even Brandon's attorney sat up straighter, recognition tightening his jaw. Cole Ramsey was not just a lawyer, he was one of the most feared litigators on Wall Street, a man known for dismantling billion-dollar corporations with a calm smile and a stack of inconvenient evidence. But Evelyn had never seen him before. Her heart pounded in confusion. Why was he here? Why her? Cole turned toward her, his voice softening. "Evelyn, I'm here to help. You're not alone anymore." If 51-2. Something old and buried flickered in her memory, a childhood photo, a vague recollection of a boy with the same deep-set eyes, the same quiet intensity. But it was impossible. Her family had been shattered decades ago. Her brother had disappeared when she was 9. Everyone said he was gone forever. No, it couldn't be. Could it? Before she could speak, Brandon shot to his feet. "This is ridiculous. She can't just magically get a lawyer 5 minutes before the ruling." "Important." Cole barely glanced at him. "You're welcome to file a motion to contest my appearance, but I doubt you want to explain to the court why you're panicking." Brandon's face flushed red. The judge cleared her throat. "Mr. Ramsey, the court was not informed. That's my responsibility, Your Honor." Cole's voice was respectful but unwavering. "But given the stakes of this case, this woman deserves proper representation." It wasn't the words. It was the way he said "this woman," as if Evelyn wasn't the broken, humiliated wife everyone assumed she was, but someone worth fighting for, worth defending, worth standing beside. Her throat tightened. For months, she'd been treated like a burden in her own marriage. For months, she'd been made to feel small. For months, she'd been erased. Now someone powerful spoke her name with weight. But the moment of relief shattered instantly when Brandon slammed a hand on the table. "She's manipulating the system. She's been nothing but dead weight since the day I married her. She can't even keep a job without falling apart." This, he gestured around wildly, is just another pity trick. Every insult sliced through her like thin paper cuts. Painful, familiar, humiliating. Cole turned sharply. Mr. Hale, consider this your only warning. If you continue degrading my client, I will file for sanctions. Brandon scoffed. You don't scare me. Dolores. Oh, Cole replied calmly, you will. A ripple of shock passed through the courtroom. Evelyn stared at the man, claiming to be her lawyer. His posture was steady, almost protective, nothing like the condescending way Brandon towered over her at home. And then Cole lowered his voice, just enough for only she could hear. I promised I'd come back for you. I never forgot. Her breath hitched. It was him. Her brother? The boy who vanished. The boy she'd mourned. The boy she thought she'd lost forever. Before she could react, the judge spoke. Very well. The court will allow Mr. Ramsey to proceed. A murmur of disbelief swept the room. Brandon's confident smile finally cracked. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Evelyn felt the ground shift beneath her this time, in her favor. The courtroom recessed for a short break, but the tension lingered in the air like static before a storm. Evelyn stepped out into the marble hallway, her pulse still unsteady. Every detail around her felt too sharp. The polished oak benches, the distant echo of heels clicking, the muted hum of conversations drifting from nearby chambers. This was the New York County Supreme Court, a place she had only ever walked past on her commute, never imagining she would one day stand in its center alone, terrified, stripped of everything she once thought she knew about her life. But she wasn't alone anymore. Not now. Not with Cole beside her. He stood a few feet away, speaking quietly with a clerk. The soft glow from the tall windows washed over him, highlighting the familiar shape of his jaw. The slight crease in his brow she remembered from childhood. It had been more than 20 years since she last saw him, yet some memories never faded. Evelyn wrapped her arms around herself as fragments of the past tugged at her, two children huddled under a blanket fort, the sound of summer rain, the day he disappeared without explanation. She had spent years believing he'd abandoned her, years grieving him, years angry at him. And now he was here, wearing a Wall Street suit and carrying the quiet authority of a man who'd seen battles far bigger than divorce court. She didn't know whether to hug him or demand answers. Before she could decide, Brandon stormed out of the courtroom, his mistress trotting behind him in stilettos that clicked too loudly on the echoing floor. He looked furious, his confidence shaken for the first time. Who the hell do you think you are? Brandon snapped at Cole. You think walking in here with your overpriced suit makes you someone? This is my court, my case. Cole didn't even blink. The court belongs to the state of New York, not to you. Is undered. Brandon stepped closer, voice dropping to a growl. You're going to regret stepping into this. Cole gave him a calm, almost pitying smile. I don't regret protecting my family. Those words hit Evelyn harder than she expected. Family, a word she hadn't used in years. Brandon scoffed and turned away, pulling out his phone. I'm calling my lawyer. We'll bury both of you. His mistress tugged at his sleeve, whispering, Brandon, people are staring. He shrugged her off. Let them stare. Ender. People were staring indeed. The hallway buzzed with speculation, everyone trying to understand how a woman who walked in alone now had one of the most powerful attorneys in Manhattan standing at her side. Cole finally approached Evelyn. I know you have questions, he said gently, and you deserve the truth. But right now, I need you to trust me for today. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. Why now? After all these years? His eyes softened with something like regret. Because I finally found you, and because he, Cole, glanced at Brandon, has taken enough from you. A sharp pain twisted in her chest. He wasn't wrong. Brandon had taken her confidence, her peace, her joy, piece by piece, until she barely recognized herself. Cole lowered his voice. This ends today. The judge's assistant opened the door to call them back inside. Brandon straightened his suit, smirking again but with a strain that hadn't been there before. Evelyn inhaled deeply. For the first time, she wasn't walking back into that courtroom as prey. She was walking in with a weapon. And the real battle was about to begin. Brandon Hale re-entered the courtroom with the forced composure of a man who'd just been publicly cornered and refused to admit it. His jaw flexed as he straightened his silk tie, the the one embroidered with the Hale Dynamics logo, a company he loved more than he ever loved his wife. The spectators returned to their seats, whispering behind their hands, their eyes following Brandon like he was the lead actor in a scandalized Broadway scene. He lived for attention, but not this kind. Brandon lowered himself into his chair with a sigh meant to signal superiority, though it trembled slightly at the edges. Across the aisle, Cole Ramsey prepared his documents with deliberate precision, each movement echoing confidence. Brandon hated him instantly, not because Cole was calm, but because he could not be rattled. Brandon excelled at shaking people. It was his favorite sport. But this man, this stranger, he didn't flinch. The judge resumed her seat. "We will proceed. Mr. Hale, your attorney may continue his argument." Brandon's lawyer, Gerald Knox, infamous for his cutthroat tactics, stood, smoothing a hand over his gray hair. "Your Honor, my client simply seeks what is fair. He funded the entirety of the marriage, supported Miss Hart financially, and—" Cole stood before he could finish. "Objection. Unsupported characterization." Gerald bristled. "I'm stating the factual foundation of our case." "No," Cole said calmly, "you're stating a narrative your client constructed to hide financial misconduct." A wave of murmurs swept the courtroom. Brandon's head jerked toward him. "What misconduct? Are you accusing me of something?" Cole didn't blink. "Not yet. Say so." The word "yet" hung in the air like a warning bell. Evelyn felt the room shift. The power dynamics were no longer lopsided, they were tilting. Her heartbeat sped not with fear this time, but with something unfamiliar. Something like hope. Gerald forced a chuckle. "Your Honor, this sudden representation is clearly a stunt meant to derail a lawful proceeding." Cole smiled faintly. "A stunt would imply surprise, but your client knew this was coming the moment he hid assets offshore. And are so, to have it." Brandon's chair scraped loudly against the floor as he stood. "You watch your mouth." "Oh?" Cole walked closer, unbothered. "Didn't think someone would find the accounts in the Cayman Islands? Or the transfers made under Hale Development's shell subsidiary?" Color drained from Brandon's face. Gerald grabbed his arm. "Sit down, Brandon." But anger was stronger than strategy. Brandon lunged toward the table, slamming both palms down. "You have no proof of anything?" "Thanks for watching." Cole slid a thin folder across the table. "Proof enough." The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Ramsey, approach." He did. She flipped through the documents, her eyes narrowing. "Mr. Hale, these records show significant financial movement unreported in your disclosures." Brandon swallowed hard. "Those aren't. That's not. He fabricates things. He's bluffing." But his voice shook. Gerald whispered harshly, "Stop talking." Evelyn watched Brandon with a strange sense of distance. There he was, the man who called her worthless, who treated her like an accessory, who laughed at her pain. He'd always strutted through life believing every lie he told. Now the lies were unraveling, piece by piece, and everyone could see it. Cole stepped back beside Evelyn, lowering his voice. "This is only the beginning. He's built his empire on arrogance and shortcuts. It won't hold." Evelyn whispered, "I never knew. You weren't supposed to." Cole's gaze remained steady on Brandon. Men like him hide their rot under polish. The judge lifted her gavel. "Court will reconvene after reviewing these documents." Brandon's mask cracked completely, and for the first time, fear flickered in his eyes. When the court reconvened, the atmosphere felt different, charged, electric, as if every person in the room sensed they were about to witness something that would dominate whispers in Manhattan law circles for months. Evelyn stepped inside slower this time, her legs still shaky but her spirit steadier than it had been in a long while. Brandon, on the other hand, looked like a man who had aged 10 years during the recess. His lawyer had spent the break hissing instructions at him, trying to salvage the crumbling facade. But arrogance had never been a stable foundation. It cracked fast. The judge cleared her throat. "Mr. Hale, before we proceed, the court requires clarification on the financial discrepancies Mr. Ramsey introduced." Brandon's voice came out strained. "Those documents are fake. He's manipulating the court." "Enough," the judge snapped. "The court will determine what is real." Then she turned to Cole. "Mr. Ramsey, continue." Cole rose like a man built for this battlefield, effortlessly calm, effortlessly dangerous. He moved toward the center of the courtroom, opening a thin binder as though he were presenting a casual PowerPoint and not detonating a legal bomb. Your Honor, while reviewing the original disclosures, I discovered something concerning. Brandon shifted uncomfortably. He's lying again. Cole continued without acknowledging him. Not only were assets hidden, but funds were diverted to an account under the name Lydia Hale. A ripple of confusion swept the courtroom. Evelyn blinked. Lydia? She didn't know anyone named. Cole turned, his voice cutting cleanly through the air. Lydia Hale is the legal name of Mr. Hale's mistress. A collective gasp exploded. Brandon shot to his feet. You can't prove that. Cole clicked a remote. A large monitor on the side wall flickered on security footage, time-stamped. Brandon walking into a luxury jewelry shop with the mistress on his arm, kissing her at the register as he paid with a corporate card. Another clip. Brandon signing a lease for a secret midtown apartment under the same alias. Another. Receipts for a Cartier bracelet, a Dior handbag, private dinners along Fifth Avenue, every transaction matching the hidden withdrawals. The room erupted. Brandon's face burned an impossible shade of red. Gerald grabbed his arm. Sit down, Brandon. Sit down right now. But humiliation was a fire he couldn't swallow. He lurched forward, pointing at Evelyn. This is your fault. You're ruining my career, you pathetic. Useless. Mr. Hale, the judge thundered. One more outburst and you will be removed. Brandon froze, chest heaving. Cole stepped between Brandon's fury and Evelyn's trembling form. My client has suffered enough abuse. Today, it ends. Evelyn felt her throat close, not from fear, but from the shock of hearing someone finally say those words out loud. Words she had needed for years. Gerald attempted damage control. Your Honor, these videos may appear incriminating, but they do not reflect financial wrongdoing. Cole cut in. They do when they involve embezzlement. A folder slid across the judge's bench. Bank transfers, mismatched spreadsheets, falsified company expenses. Brandon choked. That's corporate money. I didn't, Gerald. Say something. But Gerald had gone pale. The judge exhaled slowly. Mr. Hale, this is serious. The court will be forwarding these documents to the state for investigation. Brandon staggered back, gripping the table. Public humiliation. Public exposure. Public downfall. The man who mocked Evelyn for being alone now stood stripped in front of a full courtroom, his secrets spilled like broken glass. And as whispers spread again, louder, sharper, Evelyn realized this was the first time in years he wasn't the one holding power over her. The courtroom emptied slowly after the judge called another recess, but Evelyn felt as if the walls themselves were closing in on her. The whispers of spectators trailed behind like shadows, pity, shock, curiosity, every word carving deeper into her already fragile composure. She stepped into the hallway and pressed her back against the cool marble, trying to breathe. The world around her blurred. The endless polished floors, the towering windows overlooking Manhattan, the distant hum of elevators opening and closing. It all felt too big, too loud, too overwhelming. Her knees buckled. Cole reached her just in time, steadying her by the shoulders. Evelyn, hey, breathe. But she couldn't. Her chest squeezed tight, every breath jagged, every thought spiraling. I can't do this, she whispered. Everything is falling apart. My life, my marriage, my reputation. He's ruined me. And now the whole court knows everything. Cole's expression softened. He ruined nothing. He exposed himself. But Evelyn shook her head violently. People only see what he's been saying for months, that I'm weak, unstable, worthless, her voice broke. What if they're right? Cole's jaw tightened with a pain she didn't understand. They're not. Brandon manipulated you into believing that. End quote. But once doubt takes root, it grows fast. Images flashed in her mind, years of being spoken over, diminished, corrected, dismissed. Brandon, reshaping her reality until she didn't trust her own voice. I should have seen it earlier, Evelyn whispered, tears spilling freely now. I should have left. I should have fought back. I should have. Cole stopped her gently. He isolated you. That's what men like him do. And Poynton? His voice was steady, but Evelyn felt herself slipping deeper into the quiet storm of her mind. What if this goes wrong? She asked, hands trembling. What if he walks away free? What if he makes me pay for this? Cole exhaled slowly. You've lived in fear of him for so long you don't remember what power feels like. His tone shifted firm, protective. But you have it now. Her tears fell harder, because she didn't feel powerful. She felt broken, shattered into pieces that didn't belong to one whole person anymore. I don't know how to be strong anymore, she whispered. Cole lowered himself, so they were eye level. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just surviving long enough to stand up again. Her breath trembled out, uneven. I don't think I can stand. Then I'll hold you up until you can. That was what finally cracked her, those simple words. Words no one had said to her in years. Not since before the boy she once adored disappeared from her life. The weight of everything hit at once. The betrayal, the humiliation, the years lost to a man who drained the life from her without leaving bruises. The emptiness of walking on eggshells in her own home, the truth that she had been alone long before Brandon filed for divorce. She covered her face with her hands as a sob tore free, raw and painful. Cole stayed beside her, not touching, not crowding, simply being there. A steady presence in a world she no longer trusted. When she finally lowered her hands, her eyes were red and swollen, her voice barely a whisper. Why did it take losing everything to realize I had nothing at all? Cole's voice was quiet, because sometimes you need to see the ruins to understand what was never real. Evelyn wiped her cheeks, swallowing hard. Somewhere deep inside, beneath the fear and the heartbreak, a spark flickered. Small, fragile, but alive. And Cole saw it too. He stood and offered his hand. Come on, we go back in, and this time, you won't face him alone. Evelyn inhaled shakily, straightened herself, and took his hand. Her collapse was over. Her rise was about to begin. The courtroom lights seemed brighter when everyone returned from recess, casting sharp reflections across the polished benches. Evelyn walked in slower this time, her eyes still swollen, but her posture more controlled, steadier. Cole walked beside her, not leading, not pushing, simply present in the way someone who knew your past better than you remembered it could be. She didn't speak, but the small breath she took before sitting down said what words couldn't. She wasn't falling apart anymore. She was bracing for impact. Brandon watched her with narrowed eyes. His earlier panic had thinned into something nastier, calculating, vindictive. He leaned toward his lawyer, whispering something heated. Gerald Knox nodded stiffly, glancing at Evelyn with the expression of a man preparing to draw blood. The judge took her seat. We will now continue. Gerald approached, clearing his throat. Your Honor, before we proceed, we intend to discredit the sudden appearance of Mr. Ramsey by presenting new information regarding Miss Hart's mental stability and her supposed emotional volatility. Evelyn's stomach dropped. Cole's head turned slowly, too slowly, toward the opposing counsel. Gerald continued, we have witnesses who can attest that Miss Hart suffers from episodes of severe anxiety and emotional breakdowns. She is, therefore, unfit to receive any spousal compensation or shared assets. Evelyn froze. He was weaponizing her pain, twisting her suffering into a legal knife pointed at her throat. But Gerald wasn't done. Additionally, he said, holding up a folder, we have medical documents showing Miss Hart received treatment for an emotional collapse 2 years ago following an incident at her workplace. Whispers shot across the courtroom. Evelyn felt heat rush to her face, shame, panic, disbelief. The memory hit her like a slap. A single panic attack after months of Brandon's emotional cruelty. She never told anyone. She never even admitted it to herself. How did they get those records? Her breath hitched, her vision blurred. Brandon leaned back smugly. Then Cole stepped forward. Your Honor, he said evenly, we also have new information Mr. Knox may not be aware he just opened the door to. Gerald frowned. What are you implying? Cole lifted a sealed envelope. By attempting to submit illegally obtained medical records, which, I will remind the court, violates federal privacy laws, you have allowed us to introduce suppressed historical records relevant to Miss Hart's family background. The judge motioned. Explain. And Port 9. Cole inhaled, his voice steady but carrying an unmistakable weight. Miss Evelyn Hart is not merely my client. A pause. She is my sister. Shock rippled across the room. Brandon scoffed. What does that have to do with anything? Cole continued, tone sharpening. Our parents' legal documents, including birth certificates, guardianship paperwork, and sealed investigation reports, were recovered last week. And they reveal not only our blood relation, but the circumstances under which Evelyn was removed from our home. Evelyn whipped her head toward him. Investigations? Removed from their home? Cole's jaw tensed. Our father was abusive, violent. He hid it well. Social services removed Evelyn for her safety. I ran away, trying to protect her. That's why we were separated. The courtroom fell completely silent. Evelyn's pulse hammered. She'd spent years believing she had been unwanted, forgotten. Now, everything she thought she knew about her childhood shifted under her feet. Cole's voice softened. File after file proves Evelyn did not break. She survived. She endured what most people never would. Her anxiety isn't instability, it's evidence of trauma inflicted long before Brandon Hale ever entered her life. The judge's expression changed, subtle but unmistakable. Sympathy. Understanding. Respect. Gerald visibly blanched. Brandon? He looked blindsided. And Evelyn? She felt something she had not felt in years. Validation. The truth had finally found her. And this time, it was on her side. Evelyn didn't leave the courthouse immediately after the judge announced an extended review of the evidence. She lingered in the hallway, staring through the tall glass windows overlooking Lower Manhattan. The city glowed beneath the overcast sky, anonymous, vast, indifferent. For the first time in years, she didn't feel swallowed by it. Cole approached quietly, placing her coat gently over her shoulders. There's more we need to go over, he said, but not here. Come with me. They stepped outside into the cold autumn air. Yellow cabs zipped past. The chill bit at her skin, but she welcomed it. It made her feel awake. Alive. For years, she said softly, I believed I was broken. You were never broken, Cole replied. You were surviving. And as he led her to a black SUV waiting at the curb. Not fancy, not showy, just clean, reliable, safe. And somehow that mattered more than any luxury car Brandon flaunted. They drove in silence until the skyline shifted to a quieter, more refined neighborhood Tribeca. Cole stopped in front of a minimalist office tower with floor-to-ceiling windows and a brass nameplate, Ramsey Strategic Council. Evelyn's eyes widened. This is yours? Has been for 8 years. He hesitated. I built it, hoping one day you'd walk through the doors. Her throat tightened. Inside, the reception area exuded understated elegance, soft lighting, black marble, the faint scent of eucalyptus. It felt nothing like the cold, polished world Brandon occupied. This place felt grounded, human. Cole guided her into a private conference room. On the table sat a stack of documents, neatly arranged, alongside a sleek silver laptop already queued with files bearing her name. This, Cole said, tapping the stack, is everything Brandon took from you. Your financial rights, your contributions, your emails he deleted, your work he dismissed. I've rebuilt the timeline. Evelyn stared. How long have you been preparing this? Since the moment I found you. Her heart stumbled. But he wasn't finished. He slid a tablet toward her. You'll need to be ready for the final hearing, and that means you cannot walk in there looking like a victim. She blinked. I don't understand. Cole sat across from her, hands folded. Brandon's power came from convincing you that you were small, but tomorrow? You're going to rise. Not for him, for you. He nodded toward the glass door, where a woman in a tailored black jumpsuit entered, elegant, poised, carrying a garment bag. This is Mara, Cole explained. Image consultant, crisis prep specialist. Evelyn shook her head. I don't need. You do, Cole interrupted gently. Not because your appearance matters to me, but because it matters to the court, and because you deserve to see yourself the way the world will see you when you're free. Mara gave Evelyn a warm, steady smile. We're not changing you, we're revealing you. Evelyn hesitated, then nodded. For the next hour, she sat as Mara worked, not transforming her into someone new, but uncovering the woman who had been buried beneath years of fear. A soft, natural makeup. Sleek, simple hair. A navy dress that accentuated her posture, not her figure. Elegant, understated jewelry. When Evelyn finally stood before the mirror, she didn't recognize the reflection. This woman looked composed, intelligent, capable. Not breakable, not forgettable, not disposable. Cole stepped behind her, his reflection appearing beside hers. There you are, he said quietly. Her eyes burned, not with sadness, but with awakening. For the first time in her adult life, Evelyn Hart saw herself not as someone surviving a storm, but as someone capable of ending it. And tomorrow, she would. The next morning, the courtroom felt different the moment Evelyn walked in. Conversations stalled mid-sentence, heads lifted. Even the judge paused as she adjusted her glasses. Because this was not the broken woman from yesterday. Evelyn Hart entered with steady posture, chin lifted, her navy dress flowing around her like quiet confidence. She didn't cling to her handbag anymore. She didn't avoid eye contact. She walked as though she had just remembered she belonged in every room she stepped into. Brandon saw her and stopped, literally froze, his expression flickering between disbelief and annoyance. He leaned toward Gerald, whispering sharply, "She thinks dressing up will change anything?" Gerald did not respond. His eyes were fixed on Cole Ramsey walking behind her, carrying a slim portfolio with the sort of calm that suggested he was about to bury someone politely. The judge cleared her throat. "We will proceed with closing arguments." Gerald stood first, attempting to regain momentum. "Your Honor, despite yesterday's distractions, we maintain that Miss Hart contributed minimally to the marriage, and—" Cole rose. "Your Honor, objection. Counsel continues to misrepresent the facts." The judge nodded. "Sustained." Gerald swallowed. "As I was saying," Cole stepped forward. "Your Honor, if I may present our final evidence?" The judge gestured. "Proceed." Cole tapped the remote again. The courtroom monitor blinked to life, but this time, it wasn't financial documents. It was audio. A recorded phone call. Brandon's voice echoed through the courtroom speakers. "Just get rid of her. She's dead weight. Once the divorce is done, she gets nothing. I don't care what you have to forge, just make sure Evelyn walks away with zero." Gasps erupted. Brandon shot up, face white. "That's taken out of context." Cole didn't look at him. "Your Honor, this recording came from Hale Dynamics' internal servers. Timestamped. Unaltered. Mr. Hale instructed his assistant to falsify financial documents to discredit my client." Gerald nearly dropped his pen. "Brandon, please tell me this isn't real." Brandon shook his head wildly. "He's framing me. He's lying." But Cole wasn't finished. Another audio clip played. Brandon, again, laughing this time. "Evelyn's too stupid to ever fight back. She's practically begging me to walk all over her." Evelyn closed her eyes not in pain, but in resolution. The words that once broke her now felt like ashes. The courtroom buzzed with outrage. The judge's gavel slammed down. "Order." Cole approached the bench. "In addition to the fraudulent manipulation, Your Honor, we have sworn statements from 3 former employees confirming Mr. Hale used company funds to support his mistress and deliberately sabotaged Miss Sao Hart's employment opportunities to maintain control over her." Evelyn turned sharply. What?" Cole nodded gently. 3 companies rejected you because Brandon called ahead." Her breath stilled. He hadn't just broken her confidence. He had broken her future. The judge's voice dropped into a level of cold authority that made even seasoned attorneys sit straighter. "Mr. Hale, based on the evidence presented, the court finds you in violation of marital disclosure laws, guilty of financial misconduct, and subject to a full investigation by the state." Brandon's face collapsed. "Your Honor, please, this is a misunderstanding." But she wasn't listening. She turned to Evelyn. "Miss Hart, the court recognizes your contributions, your hardship, and the abuse inflicted upon you. You will receive full spousal compensation, restitution, and 50% of all shared marital assets." Evelyn's breath caught. She hadn't come seeking revenge. She came seeking survival. But justice, real, undeniable justice, had just arrived. And Brandon Hale, the man who mocked her for having nothing, now stared at her with the expression of someone finally understanding what it meant to lose everything. And the courtroom witnessed it all. When the final gavel struck, the echo lingered long after the judge left the bench. Reporters outside the building scrambled for position, the courthouse security ushering spectators out in waves. But Evelyn remained seated for a moment, letting the reality sink into her skin like warm sunlight after a long winter. It was over. Not the pain, not the years lost, but the war Brandon forced her into, and she had won. She rose slowly, every movement steady, deliberate. The courtroom that once felt suffocating now felt spacious, almost peaceful. Brandon remained at his table, staring blankly at the judge's empty seat as if waiting for someone to declare it all a misunderstanding. His lawyer whispered to him, but he seemed frozen in place, unable or unwilling to accept what had just happened. For the first time, Evelyn didn't flinch at the sight of him. He no longer had power over her. Cole approached, slipping his portfolio under his arm. "You did it," he said softly. She let out a shaky breath. "No, we did it." He shook his head. "Evelyn, you showed up today. You faced him. You stood your ground. That strength was yours. If it matters." She looked at him, emotion rising in her chest. "Thank you for coming back. For finding me." His expression softened. "I never stopped looking." They stepped out into the hallway together. Flashing cameras immediately lit up the entrance, reporters calling for statements, microphones reaching for every word. Cole gently placed a hand at her back, not guiding, not shielding, just steadying. Evelyn faced the cameras. Not as a victim, not as the woman abandoned and humiliated, but as someone who reclaimed her voice. She spoke clearly. "I hope anyone watching this understands something. Silence doesn't mean weakness. Sometimes silence is surviving, and one day, when you're ready, you rise." The crowd quieted, absorbing every word. Brandon emerged moments later, flanked by his attorney. Reporters swarmed him, shouting questions. "Mr. Hale, do you deny the recordings? Will Hale Dynamics survive the investigation? Is it true you falsified disclosures?" Brandon pushed through the chaos, but something had changed in him. The arrogance was gone, replaced by panic, by consequences he could no longer outrun. It was poetic, in a way. The man who believed he controlled every outcome now found himself at the mercy of a truth he created. Evelyn didn't watch him for long. He wasn't part of her story anymore. Outside, the crisp autumn breeze brushed her skin as she and Cole stepped toward the waiting SUV. She paused, gazing up at the Manhattan skyline, the same skyline that once made her feel small. Now, it felt like possibility. "Evelyn," Cole said gently, "you know you're entitled to compensation, assets, and the apartment. We can talk through all of it once you're ready." She nodded. "I will. But today, I just want peace." He smiled. "Then that's where we begin." Descend. I weigh. As they drove away from the courthouse, Evelyn leaned her head against the window. The city lights flickered across her reflection, but for the first time, she didn't see fear in her own eyes. She saw freedom. She saw resilience. She saw a future that belonged entirely to her. Her voice whispered into the quiet car, more to herself than to anyone else. "I'm finally done breaking." And somewhere deep inside her, where the girl she once was still lived, something whole began to form. Not vengeance. Not anger. Just healing. The chapter was closed, and she was the one who closed it. Evelyn Hart had risen, and she would never fall that way again. The days following the courtroom victory moved strangely for Evelyn, quiet, almost too quiet. After months of living under constant fear, constant scrutiny, constant humiliation, the sudden absence of chaos felt unreal. Like waking up in a room where the storm had passed, but the thunder still echoed in your bones. Cole insisted she stay in a safe place while the investigation into Brandon unfolded. So, Evelyn found herself temporarily living in a furnished corporate apartment. Cole kept in Tribeca, high ceilings, soft gray walls, floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked a calm stretch of the Hudson River. It felt nothing like the cramped Brooklyn studio she once cried in. But it didn't feel quite like home either. On her first night there, she stood barefoot in the kitchen, staring at the marble countertop, feeling a strange emptiness. She had won. She should feel triumphant, whole. But healing didn't arrive like a parade. It arrived quietly, uncertainly, like a guest, unsure whether they were welcome. A soft knock sounded at the door. Cole stepped inside, holding 2 cups of tea. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. She shook her head. "My mind won't slow down." He handed her the cup. "It will. Eventually. You've lived in survival mode for so long, your brain hasn't learned what safety feels like yet." Evelyn sat on the couch, the warm mug grounding her. "I keep replaying things," she admitted. "The way he talked to me, the way I believed him, the way I let myself shrink." Cole sat beside her, not close enough to crowd, but close enough to anchor. "That's what emotional abuse does. It rewires you to think you're the problem." She exhaled shakily. "I don't want to feel weak anymore." "Thanks for watching." "You're not weak," he said. "You walked into that courtroom every day, even when you felt like breaking. That's strength most people never touch. His voice was steady, warm, protective. She forgot what it felt like to have someone speak to her with nothing but truth and care. But healing wasn't the only thing stirring inside her. A question burned at the edge of her thoughts, a question she'd avoided since Cole revealed the truth about their family. "What happened to you after you left?" she finally asked. "All those years? Where were you?" Cole's jaw tightened, the first crack in his usually composed demeanor. "It's a long story. I want to know." He looked at her, something old and wounded flickering in his eyes. "I spent years trying to get back to you, but foster care isn't designed for reunions. I got moved around, lost track of where they took you. By the time I aged out, all I had was a name, heart, and a city you might have lived in. And you still searched?" "Every year," he said simply. "I promised I'd find you, and I don't break promises." Emotion hit her so sharply she had to set the mug down. For years, she thought she'd been abandoned by everyone, but the truth was far more complicated and far more painful. Before she could respond, Cole's phone buzzed. He frowned at the screen, a deep, restraining tension settling across his face. "What is it?" Evelyn asked. He hesitated. "It's about Brandon." Her stomach dropped. "What now?" Cole stood slowly, expression darkening. The investigation escalated, and something new came up. Evelyn's pulse quickened. "New?" Cole looked at her with a gravity that made her breath stop. "Brandon did more than hide assets," he said quietly. "He hid things about you." End quote. And the fragile calm she'd built in the last 24 hours cracked wide open. Evelyn felt her pulse hammer harder with each second of silence. Cole stood by the window, the glow of the city outside reflecting off the glass and casting sharp lines across his face. He looked torn, like someone who knew a truth he wished he didn't have to say. "Cole," Evelyn whispered. "What did he hide?" He turned toward her slowly. "First, you need to sit down." Her knees weakened. She lowered herself onto the edge of the couch, gripping the cushion as if the room were tilting. Cole crossed the space between them and placed a folder on the coffee table, thick, overstuffed, worn at the corners. Inside were documents. Too many documents. "Brandon didn't just manipulate your finances," Cole said quietly. "He manipulated your identity." Evelyn's breath stuttered. "What does that mean?" Cole opened the folder to the first page, an employment background check from 3 years prior. "He altered your records. Every job you applied to after 2021, he sent private letters claiming you were mentally unstable." Her heart dropped. "That's why I never got any callbacks. He made sure you wouldn't." She looked up sharply. "But why? Why sabotage my career?" Cole hesitated, then pulled out another document, a sealed medical authorization form with Brandon's signature on it. "He requested access to your confidential therapy notes." Evelyn's blood ran cold. "He? What?" "He pretended to be acting on your behalf. He used those notes to build a false mental health narrative about you. And not just for employers, for insurance, for financial institutions, even for the divorce." A tremor passed through her. Every insecurity she battled, every moment she thought she was losing her mind. He had engineered it. He had stolen pieces of her reality and weaponized them. "That's not all," Cole said, voice darkening. "There's something worse." "Worse? How could there be worse?" Cole took a breath, steadying himself. "Remember how he always said the two of you weren't ready for kids? How he refused every discussion?" Evelyn nodded slowly. "He said it wasn't the right time, that we needed stability first." Cole opened another folder, this one far thinner, but colder somehow. "Brandon underwent a fertility evaluation 2 years ago. He didn't tell you because he was the one with the issue. Not you." Evelyn's lungs constricted. "He lied to me? He made me think I was the problem. He needed you to believe that. Control works best when it comes from shame." Her chest tightened, not just with anger, but grief. Grief for the version of herself who cried alone in bathrooms, wondering why she wasn't enough. "And there's something else," Cole continued. "Something he hid because he knew it could destroy him." She braced herself. Cole sat beside her, voice lowering. "Brandon's company isn't actually legally under his name." Evelyn's eyes widened. "What?" "He transferred ownership 18 months ago." "To who?" Cole met her gaze with a gravity that made her stomach plummet. "To you." End quote. For a long moment, Evelyn couldn't move, couldn't blink, couldn't breathe. "That makes no sense," she finally whispered. "Why would he put the company under my name?" Cole pulled out the last document, a notarized transfer of ownership. He did it to avoid liability. There was a federal investigation looming. He transferred assets to you, so if the company collapsed, he wouldn't be the legal owner. Evelyn felt the world tilt violently. "He used you," Cole said softly, "as a shield. If we have distorting mana." Her lips parted. "So, legally, Hale Dynamics." Cole nodded. "Half his empire," he said, "already belongs to you." And Evelyn Hart, who once believed she had nothing, now realized she held the weapon that could end Brandon Hale completely. And he never thought she would learn the truth. Evelyn didn't sleep that night, not because of fear this time, but because the truth pulsed through her like electricity, unsettling, overwhelming, impossible to ignore. Brandon hadn't just tried to destroy her. He had underestimated her so severely he hid his own empire in her name. And now she finally understood the one thing he never wanted her to realize. She had power, real power, and she had always been capable of using it. She just needed to remember she had a voice. When morning light spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Tribeca apartment, Evelyn stood barefoot on the polished wood floor, staring out at the city. Manhattan gleamed beneath a thin fog, quiet yet restless, alive in a way she never felt allowed to be. Cole entered the room, 2 coffees in hand. "Long night?" She nodded, accepting the cup. "I kept thinking about everything he did, everything he took, everything he tried to hide." "And?" Cole asked. Evelyn turned toward him, a steadiness settling behind her eyes. "And I'm done being afraid." A small smile touched his lips, proud, relieved, but also something deeper. "Then today is the day we start taking control." He laid out a plan. Meet with a financial forensics specialist. Review every document tied to Hale Dynamics. Examine how much legal leverage she actually had. Prepare for the next hearing, where the judge would formalize asset division. But Evelyn interrupted gently. "I don't want to just defend myself anymore. I want to confront him. On my terms." Cole studied her carefully. "That's a big step." And was. "It's the one he never expected me to take." She said it calmly, but her voice held something new, resolve. 2 hours later, Evelyn walked through the lobby of a sleek midtown office tower, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She wore the same navy dress Mara had chosen, but today it felt less like armor and more like skin. A receptionist looked up. "Welcome to Hale Dynamics. Do you have an appointment?" "No," Evelyn said simply, "but I'm here for what belongs to me." "If that." Confusion flickered, but before the receptionist could respond, the elevator doors opened and out stepped Brandon, his jaw tightening the moment he saw her. "What are you doing here?" he hissed. Evelyn didn't flinch. "Coming to see my company." He blinked. "Your company? Evelyn, don't embarrass yourself. You don't even understand half the paperwork you signed." She stepped closer, not timid, not trembling. "Maybe not then, but I do now." Brandon's facade cracked. "You think you can walk in here and take over?" "Evelyn, Hale Dynamics exists because of me. Every dollar, every client, and whose name is on the ownership documents?" she asked softly. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Employees nearby exchanged glances. Cole stepped out of a second elevator, his presence quiet but unmistakably commanding. "Mr. Hale, as legal counsel for Miss Hart, I advise you to treat the rightful owner with respect while we transition this matter to the court. Number 2 for us." "Number espèce," Brandon sputtered. "This is ridiculous." Evelyn looked around, taking in the expensive art on the walls, the sleek furniture, the cold corporate lighting. This was the world she had been kept out of. The world Brandon claimed she wasn't good enough for. Now it belonged to her. "No," she said softly. "What's ridiculous is how much you underestimated me." Brandon's face drained. For the first time, she saw fear, not rage, not arrogance, real fear. Because he knew. He finally knew. Evelyn Hart was no longer the woman he could break. She turned toward the elevator without waiting for a reply. Behind her, Cole whispered, "That was impressive." Evelyn exhaled slowly. That was just the beginning. And Manhattan, for the first time, felt like a city she could conquer. Brandon Hale was not a man built to lose, certainly not to Evelyn. So when she walked out of his building with the quiet confidence of someone reclaiming her life, something inside him snapped. By the next morning, Manhattan was buzzing. Cole sat at the dining table in the Tribeca apartment, scrolling through his phone as Evelyn poured herself a cup of coffee. His expression darkened. "You should sit," he said. Her stomach tightened. What happened now? He turned the screen toward her. A headline blared across the top of a business news site. Hale Dynamics under siege. CEO claims ex-wife stole company through fraud. Evelyn's hands stiffened around the coffee mug. What? Cole scrolled. Brandon held a press conference at 8 this morning. He told the media, "You manipulated him into signing ownership documents while he was under medication after surgery." Evelyn nearly choked. Medication? He's never even had surgery. "I know," Cole said, "but this isn't about truth. It's about narrative." Her pulse climbed. People will believe him. He always knows how to twist things. "Evelyn." Cole's voice softened. His desperation is showing. This is exactly what guilty men do. But the panic had already begun to climb her spine. She paced the room, her breath shaking. "I can't go through this again. I can't let him paint me as a liar, a manipulator." "He won't," Cole said firmly. "Not this time." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed again. He looked down. His expression hardened even further. This just got more serious. He handed her his phone. A social media post from Brandon's mistress was going viral. "Some women ruin good men. Some women break their own husbands. I've seen it firsthand." Thousands of likes, thousands of comments, many siding with her. Evelyn's throat tightened. She's doing this for attention. She doesn't even know me. "But she knows the public loves a villain," Cole said, "and she's decided that villain is you." The panic she felt was suffocating, pressing against her ribs like a vice. "This is too much. The world already thinks I'm broken. Now they think I'm dangerous." Cole stepped closer. "Look at me." She did. "You survived a man who spent years crushing your spirit. You survived a courtroom meant to humiliate you. You survived finding out the truth about your childhood. If you can survive all of that, you can survive public opinion." Evelyn blinked, tears threatening. "What if I can't?" "You can," he said simply, "because you're not alone anymore. If you could." Before she could speak, a sharp knock hit the door. Cole's posture shifted instantly, alert, defensive. He moved to the door, checking the peephole. "It's Detective Ramirez," he said. Evelyn's stomach dropped. "Why is a detective here?" Cole opened the door. Detective Ramirez stepped inside, removing his gloves. "Miss Hart, Mr. Ramsey, we need to talk. There's been a development in the investigation into Mr. Hale." Evelyn's heart pounded. "What kind of development?" Ramirez hesitated. "A serious one. We recovered digital logs and internal emails. They show Mr. Hale was planning to move all remaining company assets offshore within the week." Evelyn clutched the back of a chair. "He was trying to run." "He still might," Ramirez said. "And there's more. He listed you, Miss Hart, as a co-conspirator in the documents." Her blood turned cold. "He's trying to take me down with him." Cole stepped forward, jaw clenched. "He won't. Not a chance. Ever." Evelyn felt the truth settle into her chest, heavy, cold, undeniable. Brandon wasn't just fighting back. He was preparing for war. And this time, his destruction might take everything with it unless Evelyn fought harder than she ever had before. For the first time since everything began, Evelyn didn't collapse under the weight of new threats. She straightened. Standing in the center of the Tribeca apartment, she felt something shift inside her. Not fear, not panic, but resolve. The kind that comes from being pushed too far for too long. Detective Ramirez closed his notebook. "We're filing charges against Mr. Hale, but you need to be prepared, Miss Hart. If he runs, he'll blame everything on you." Cole placed a steady hand on her arm, but he won't get far, and he won't win. Ramirez nodded and left. Once the door closed, Cole turned toward her. "Evelyn," he said, "we need to respond. Fast, publicly and strategically." She inhaled, slow but steady. "Then let's respond." Cole blinked, surprised but impressed. "You're sure?" "Yes," she said firmly. "I've been reacting this whole time. Let's make him react for once." An hour later, Evelyn walked into Ramsey's strategic council with an energy the entire staff seemed to feel. Heads turned. Conversations paused. A receptionist whispered, That's her, with something like admiration. Cole led her into a glass-walled conference room. Waiting inside was a team, 2 crisis strategists, 1 PR advisor, 1 legal analyst. The room buzzed with intensity. Evelyn swallowed. All this, for me? Not for you, Cole corrected gently. With you. She sat, shoulders back. Cole opened the meeting. Brandon Hale has launched a smear campaign. We won't just defend, we will dismantle. The PR advisor clicked her laptop, projecting a media dashboard onto the wall, spikes and searches for Evelyn's name, hashtags swirling, rumors spreading. Mr. Hale is pushing the narrative hard, she said. But the public is turning. They saw the court footage. They heard the recordings. Evelyn stared at her own name trending beside Brandon's. For years she felt invisible. Now she was unavoidable. The strategist leaned forward. We propose a controlled statement. Something calm, factual, indisputable. Evelyn shook her head. No, not yet. The team exchanged glances. She continued, voice steady. I don't want to give statements while he controls the narrative. I want to change the playing field entirely. Cole's eyes sharpened. What are you thinking? Evelyn tapped the folder. Cole had shown her the ownership transfer of Hale Dynamics. If he wants a war, she said quietly, then let's go to the place he thinks he owns. Cole understood instantly. You want to call an emergency board meeting? Yes. You want to confront him on corporate ground. Dad, end quote. Yes. You want to show the world he doesn't control his company anymore. Evelyn looked him dead in the eyes. I want to show him. By noon, the plan was in motion. Cole made the calls, invoking Evelyn's legal authority as majority owner. The board members, confused but compliant, agreed to meet the next morning in the glass-wrapped executive boardroom on the 42nd floor of Hale Dynamics. Brandon's fortress, his stage, his pride, and soon, the site of his unraveling. When Cole ended the final call, he turned to her. He's going to explode when he hears about this. I'm counting on it, Evelyn replied. But later, standing alone by the window, she pressed a hand to the cool glass. The Hudson shimmered under the afternoon light. She let herself breathe in the moment, not victory, not revenge, but certainty. This wasn't the Evelyn who apologized for existing. This wasn't the Evelyn who accepted whatever scraps of kindness Brandon tossed at her. This was a woman reclaiming her place in a world that once tried to swallow her whole. And tomorrow, in that boardroom, in front of the entire company, she would finally take back everything Brandon stole. The next morning, the 42nd floor of Hale Dynamics felt colder than usual, as if the building sensed a shift coming. The boardroom, normally a controlled, polished arena for power, buzzed with muted tension. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Manhattan skyline, the early sun cutting sharp lines across the long oak table. One by one, board members filed in, whispering among themselves. They had all received the same surprise notice. Emergency meeting called by majority owner Miss Evelyn Hart. Most had never met her. Some didn't even know she existed. They sat, uncertain, adjusting their Rolexes, smoothing their suits, waiting for answers. The tension thickened when the elevator chimed and Brandon Hale stormed out. He didn't walk. He marched. His face was flushed, hair unkempt, suit rumpled like he'd slept in it. He slammed the boardroom door open so hard it rattled. What kind of sick joke is this? He snapped. A meeting called by Evelyn? She has no authority. She has nothing to do with this company. A few board members exchanged uneasy glances. They had read the documents Cole forwarded last night. They knew the truth. Brandon, one of the older directors, began gently. If the paperwork is accurate, It's not accurate, Brandon barked, pacing like a trapped animal. She manipulated me. She tricked me into signing. The door opened again. Evelyn stepped inside. Gasps rippled across the room. She wore a tailored charcoal blazer, a silk blouse the color of ivory, and a quiet confidence that seemed to eclipse even the Manhattan skyline behind her. Cole followed a step behind, carrying a slim binder. Brandon froze mid-stride. You don't belong here, he growled. Evelyn met his glare without flinching. That's something we'll let the board decide. Murmurs erupted. A few directors leaned forward, intrigued. Brandon slammed his fist on the table. This is my company. Cole replied calmly. Legally, it's hers. He slid copies of the notarized transfer across the table. One by one, board members lifted the documents, brows lifting, eyes widening. Brandon snatched a sheet from one director. "This is fabricated." Evelyn exhaled slowly. "It's your signature, Brandon. You made me sign it." "No," she said. "You used it to hide assets. Now it's exposing you." Laughter suppressed but audible escaped one director. Brandon's face twisted. "You think this means anything?" "The public believes me. The press believes me. They think you destroyed me." Evelyn stepped closer, her voice soft but steady. "Then why are you the one unraveling?" A hush fell. Cole placed his binder on the table. "If the board would turn to page 12, you'll find evidence of Mr. Hale diverting corporate assets offshore." He glanced at Brandon, as well as emails listing Miss Hart as a co-conspirator without her knowledge. Brandon lunged forward. "You're lying." Cole didn't flinch. "The state police have the same documents." A board member cleared his throat. "Brandon, is this true?" Brandon's mouth opened, but no words came out. His world, built on control and secrets, was collapsing faster than he could patch it. Evelyn turned to face the room. "I didn't ask for this company. I didn't even know it had been transferred to me. But now that I do, I won't let it burn because of his actions." The directors exchanged silent, loaded looks. Evelyn continued. "Today, this board will vote on whether Brandon Hale remains CEO." And Descays. Brandon's eyes widened in horror. "You can't do that." Cole answered, "She can. And she will." A director leaned back, exhaling. "Given the evidence, a vote seems appropriate." Brandon's fury ricocheted around the room. "You want to do this?" he snarled. "Fine, you'll regret." Evelyn cut him off. "No, Brandon. I spent years regretting things. Not anymore." And for the first time in his life, Brandon Hale realized he was about to lose the throne he built on lies. Silence held the boardroom hostage. The city glimmered through the windows, but inside the 42nd floor of Hale Dynamics, the air felt sharp, like everyone was breathing in the moment a kingdom collapses. Brandon looked around the table, searching for support, but the faces staring back at him were not loyal soldiers. They were businessmen, investors, pragmatists. And they could all smell a sinking ship. "Let's be reasonable," Brandon said, voice cracking. "You know me. You know my leadership. This company exists because of me." A director cleared his throat. "It also may collapse because of you." Murmurs followed. Brandon whipped toward Evelyn. "This is what you wanted, isn't it? To humiliate me publicly?" Evelyn met his stare calm, steady, unmoved. "No, Brandon. I never wanted revenge. I wanted truth. You're the one who built your life on lies." Cole stepped beside her, hands folded, expression neutral but razor-sharp. "Shall we proceed with the vote?" The chairman nodded. "All in favor of removing Brandon Hale as CEO of Hale Dynamics, effective immediately, say aye." It happened in a wave, one voice, then another, then another. A chorus of aye echoing around the polished oak table. Brandon's face twisted in disbelief. "No, no, this can't." "All opposed?" the chairman asked. Only Brandon raised his hand, trembling, defeated. The chairman closed the ledger. "Motion passes. Brandon Hale is hereby removed as CEO." A gasp escaped from someone in the room. Another director shook his head, almost pitying. Brandon staggered back like he had been struck. "You're ruining everything," he whispered. "Everything I built." Cole's tone was ice. "You ruined it yourself." Security approached the doorway, the quiet, respectful kind who didn't need to show force to imply it. Brandon's voice cracked. "You're really going to let them drag me out like a criminal?" Evelyn inhaled slowly. "No one dragged you anywhere, Brandon. You walked yourself here." "And well." His eyes flashed with desperation. "Evelyn, please talk to them. Tell them this is a mistake, that we can fix this." There had been a time years ago when that voice might have reached her, when she might have softened, when she still believed he had a heart, but not now. "Brandon," she said quietly, "you broke something you can't repair." He stopped. Something inside him seemed to fold, rage giving way to a hollow grief he wasn't prepared for. For a brief moment, she saw him for what he truly was. Not a powerful man, not a monster, but a coward terrified of losing control. Security stepped forward. He recoiled. "Don't touch me." The chairman sighed. "Mr. Hale, please exit voluntarily." But Brandon didn't move, until the door opened again. Detective Ramirez entered, a warrant in hand. "Brandon Hale," he announced, "you are under investigation for corporate fraud, embezzlement, and identity manipulation. You are required to come with us." The board gasped. Brandon's face went white, truly white. "You can't arrest me," he yelled. "This is my company." Ramirez looked at Evelyn. "Not anymore." Security and detectives escorted Brandon out. His shouting faded down the hall, a mix of rage, denial, and panic. When the door finally closed, the room exhaled. Evelyn did too. For the first time, she let her shoulders ease, let her breath fill her fully, let the weight fall away. Because Brandon's power over her was gone. Legally, emotionally, irrevocably. Cole touched her elbow lightly. "You did it." Evelyn shook her head faintly. "No. I stood up, that's all." He smiled. "Sometimes, that's everything." She looked out at the skyline, her city, her future. But just when peace seemed within reach, another twist was waiting. The boardroom had finally cleared out, leaving Evelyn and Cole alone with the fading echoes of everything that had just happened. Evelyn stood by the window, watching the city pulse far below. For the first time, she wasn't looking down at Manhattan, she was looking across it. But the calm didn't settle long. Cole's phone buzzed again. He glanced at the screen, then hesitated in a way she had never seen from him. "What is it?" she asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked closer, lowering his voice. "There's someone downstairs asking to see you." Her brows lifted. "Who?" Cole exhaled slowly. "Someone from our past." Evelyn's heart stuttered. "Cole? Is it?" "No," he said gently, knowing instantly where her mind had gone. "Not him, someone else." He motioned toward the hallway. Evelyn followed him out of the boardroom, her nerves tightening with each step. They took the express elevator down to the lobby. The polished chrome doors opened onto a surprisingly quiet reception area. Then Evelyn froze. A woman stood near the seating area, mid-50s. Graying blonde hair pulled into a low bun, hands clasped in front of her like she didn't trust them not to shake. Her eyes, soft, uncertain, lifted when she saw Evelyn. Those eyes were familiar. Uncomfortably familiar? The woman swallowed. "Evelyn, you've grown so much." Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" Cole stepped forward, his voice tight. "She's our mother." The words hit the air like a shockwave. Evelyn stumbled back a step. No, that can't be. She died. I was told she died." The woman's eyes filled. "I know, and I'm so sorry. I didn't choose to leave you. I didn't choose any of it." Evelyn's pulse roared in her ears. She looked at Cole, searching for reassurance, for clarity, for anything. He nodded once. "It's her. I confirmed it with the documents we found." Evelyn turned back to the woman, this stranger who shared her eyes, her cheekbones, her quiet expressions. Her stomach twisted with emotions she couldn't name. Anger, grief, curiosity, fear, all tangled into one impossible knot. "Why are you here?" Evelyn whispered. "After all this time?" The woman's hands trembled. "Because I heard your name on the news. And the moment I did, I knew I couldn't stay away anymore. Not when the truth was being uncovered." "What truth?" Evelyn demanded. The woman took a shaky breath. "Your father wasn't the only monster in that house." "It's so." Cole stiffened beside her. The woman continued, voice cracking. "He threatened my life. Told me if I tried to contact you, he would hurt you both. He forced me out. He made me disappear. I wanted to come back, I tried, but every attempt put you in danger." Evelyn felt her knees weaken. The ground beneath her childhood memories shifted again, cracking in new places. The woman stepped closer, tears slipping freely down her cheeks. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know I didn't abandon you. I never stopped loving you. I watched you from afar whenever I could. And when I saw you standing up to a man like Brandon, I realized you became everything I prayed you'd grow into. Strong, brave, unbreakable." Evelyn swallowed hard. Why now? Why after everything? The woman reached into her bag and pulled out a thin envelope. "Because," she said softly, "there's something else you need to know. Something about Brandon. Something about why he chose you." Cole stiffened. Evelyn's breath hitched. "What are you talking about?" The woman held out the envelope. "You weren't chosen by accident," she whispered. "Brandon targeted you. Evelyn's world fractured again, and this time, the truth waiting inside that envelope might change everything. Forever. The envelope felt too light to hold something that could shatter a person's world, but Evelyn's fingers shook as she took it anyway. Her mother, this stranger who wasn't a stranger, watched her with eyes full of apology, fear, and something deeper: urgency. Cole hovered close, tense. "Evelyn, you don't have to open it right now." But she did. She needed to. Every instinct told her that whatever lay inside connected every thread of cruelty, every manipulation, every question that had haunted her for years. She slid a trembling finger under the flap and pulled out a thin stack of documents. The first page was a photograph, grainy, old, clearly taken without permission. It was her. A much younger Evelyn, maybe 19, working a shift at a diner in Jersey. Her stomach flipped. "What is this?" Her mother swallowed hard. "Start from the next page." Cole leaned in as Evelyn turned the page. A report from a private investigator. Hired by Brandon Hale. Date: 7 years before their first meeting. Evelyn's breath caught. He knew who I was? Her mother nodded painfully. "Long before you ever met him." Evelyn continued reading, each line colder than the last. Subject: exhibits signs of social isolation. No stable family connections detected. Minimal financial safety net. History of trauma, likely emotionally vulnerable. Potential target for long-term control. Recommendation: high suitability for relationship manipulation. The words blurred as bile rose in Evelyn's throat. "No," she whispered. "No, this can't be real." But it was. Cole clenched his fists, fury simmering under the surface. "He profiled you. He watched you. He chose you because he thought you were easy to break." Her mother covered her mouth, tears spilling. "I didn't know until years later. I tried to warn you, but I had no way to reach you." Evelyn stumbled back a step, gripping the edge of the reception desk to stay upright. Her lungs fought for air. Her skin prickled with nausea and horror. Brandon hadn't just married her. He hadn't fallen out of love. He hadn't grown distant. He had hunted her. Like prey. Her entire relationship, every sweet moment, every kindness, every apology felt suddenly poisoned, scripted, designed. Not love, never love. "He studied me," Evelyn whispered, her voice hollow. "Planned me, selected me." Her mother sobbed silently. "Yes." Cole's voice dropped into something dark. "This goes beyond abuse. This is predatory, calculated, criminal." Evelyn blinked hard, fighting tears. "Why? Why me? Why would he do this?" Her mother hesitated. "Because of your father." Evelyn's heart stopped. "What does my father have to do with Brandon?" Cole turned sharply toward the woman. "Explain, now." Her mother wrung her hands, voice trembling. "Your father owed money. Dangerous money. To men who funded smaller tech startups, men connected to Brandon's early investors." Evelyn's pulse thundered. Her mother continued. "Brandon's first company nearly collapsed. He needed someone he could control. Someone he could legally use as a shield if things went wrong. Someone without resources, without backup, without a family to defend her." Cold realization spread through Evelyn's body like poison. "He targeted me. Because I was alone." Her mother nodded, sobbing. "Yes. Because he thought no one would ever come for you." Silence pressed into the room, thick and heavy. Cole moved closer, voice low, controlled, trembling with restrained rage. "He underestimated one thing." Evelyn lifted her eyes, glassy but burning. "What?" Cole held her gaze. "You're not alone anymore." Something inside her cracked, but not in the way it used to. Not in pain. In awakening. Evelyn straightened her spine, clutching the dossier tighter. If Brandon had chosen her because she was alone, then he was about to learn what happens when the girl he hunted becomes a woman who fights back. And the final reckoning was coming. The courthouse steps were crowded again when the final hearing was scheduled. Media trucks lining the street, reporters clustered behind barricades, cameras pointed toward the entrance like the city itself was holding its breath. But this time, Evelyn didn't tremble. She arrived in a tailored black coat, the skyline reflecting off the glass doors as she walked inside. Cole paced beside her, protective without overshadowing her. Her mother followed a few steps behind, quieter, unsure of where she fit in but present. Evelyn wasn't walking in as someone's wife, or someone's target, or someone's victim. She walked in as a woman reclaiming her life. Inside the courtroom, Brandon Hale sat handcuffed between two state officers. His once expensive suit hung awkwardly on him, wrinkled, defeated. His eyes darted everywhere but toward Evelyn. The judge entered. "We are here to finalize the distribution of assets and address the criminal findings." Brandon's lawyer, his third in 2 weeks, stood, voice strained. "Your Honor, we request leniency. My client was under personal stress, facing financial threats." Cole rose smoothly. "Your Honor, the evidence is overwhelming. Mr. Hale knowingly manipulated Miss Hart, used her identity to shield himself from legal repercussions, and orchestrated a predatory relationship rooted in deception. His actions were intentional, never accidental." The judge nodded gravely. "Mr. Hale, please rise." Brandon stood, wrists trembling against the cuffs. The judge continued, "Due to the discovery of targeted manipulation, falsified documents, financial misconduct, and identity abuse, the court rules as follows. Miss Hart is granted full and unquestioned ownership of Hale Dynamics. Miss Hart will receive full restitution for damages inflicted. Mr. Hale will face criminal prosecution under state and federal law." A murmur of shock and approval filled the room. Brandon broke. "You can't do this," he shouted, struggling against the officers. "She was nothing. I made her." The judge slammed the gavel. "You made your choices, Mr. Hale. Now you will face the consequences." The officers pulled him back. Brandon's voice cracked, desperate. "Evelyn, please don't let them take everything." Evelyn met his eyes for the last time. Not with anger, not with fear. With closure. "You took years from me," she said softly, "but you don't get one more day." Brandon's knees buckled. The officers steadied him as he was escorted out of the courtroom. His shouts echoed down the hallway, fading like the last dying remnants of a storm. And then, silence. A silence Evelyn had waited her entire life to feel. Outside the courthouse, reporters rushed forward. "Miss Hart, do you have a statement? What will you do with the company? How do you feel about today's ruling?" Evelyn stepped up to the podium, Cole set for her. Her voice was calm, steady, unwavering. "I spent years believing I wasn't enough. Today, I want anyone listening to know this. People can break you, lie to you, try to control your life, but they cannot define you. You define yourself. And no matter how dark it gets, you can stand again." The crowd fell silent, moved. She stepped back. Cole touched her hand briefly, grounding her. Her mother approached, timid but hopeful. "Evelyn, can we try again? Not the past, just a beginning?" Evelyn looked at her, really looked, and nodded. "We can try." As they walked toward the waiting car, the late afternoon light hit the skyline, warm and golden, like the city was finally welcoming her into the life she deserved. Evelyn inhaled deeply. No more storms, no more fear, no more silence. Just freedom, just truth, just beginnings. And as the courthouse doors closed behind her, sealing the past where it belonged, Evelyn Hart stepped into her future, whole, unbroken, and finally, free. So that's how the story ends, my wonderful friends. And if you're still here with me right now, it means something in this journey touched your heart in its own quiet way. Maybe you saw a part of yourself in Evelyn. Maybe you recognized a storm you once survived. Or maybe you simply needed a reminder that even the darkest chapters can lead to light. The Stoics used to say, "What stands in the way becomes the way." And Evelyn's story is proof of that. She wasn't strong because life was easy. She became strong because life demanded she rise. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." And when Evelyn finally claimed that power, everything changed. Take that with you. You're allowed to begin again. You're allowed to reclaim your voice. You're allowed to rise after being broken. And hey, if this story stayed with you until the very end, then maybe you and I are connected in this moment for a reason. So before you go, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Not for numbers, but so we can keep walking through these stories together, one healing truth at a time.